preparedness, gear discussions, and so much more. Check it out with your premium Aftermath subscription, and make sure you stay unsuppressed.
If you're looking for a thought-provoking multimedia platform about current events, trending news, pop culture, conspiracies, and the paranormal, you need to sign up for Ground Zero's exclusive digital playground, Aftermath.media. Their website includes years of archived shows and podcasts from Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. You'll have access to over 200 documentaries and movies from some of the greatest minds in the last 50 years in their video section. In addition, you can watch live video stream of Ground Zero. Also, there's monthly chats with Clyde along with intriguing and educational webinars. Each subscription includes tech support, RSS feeds, a chat room, and social media channel. Be sure to check out their yearly specials for basic and premium memberships. So sign up today at Aftermath.media.
Gentlemen, I've brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem.
It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show.
The Vinny Eastwood show.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need. The Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
And welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites, to another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood show. This is the triumphant return of the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we have a brand new, well, I wouldn't say brand new, it's secondhand, but it does work much better than the last studio computer we had, and everything is now sussed and working perfectly, I hope. So, if you are in the chat rooms of YouTube, the Vinny Eastwood NZ, which is the YouTube channel official for this broadcast, or on Twitch, Vinny Eastwood, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/Vinny Eastwood Show. Give us a shout out and let us know if the quality of stream is to your liking. So, without, as they say in Palestine, further ado, we'd like to discuss the triumphant return of the Vinny Eastwood show. So on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, we have a little announcement here, which is great news. This is an update from the 1st of December. After calling out for help to get a new broadcast computer, we raised enough in just 3 days. The new machine works perfectly. We're back on track for the show today and beyond. Big thanks and huge hugs to the people who helped keep the Vinny Eastwood show on the air. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I was kind of languishing in a sort of an upset and anxious state at the possibility of not being able to deliver this show, because I know what it does mean to some people who are I guess, like me, and possibly like you as well, I'm not sure what your situation is, suffering the side effects of waking up to the truth in a society full of lies and people who lie to themselves. This is a real difficult thing to deal with most of the time, and that's why Vinny, the conspiracy therapist, is here to help you relax and massage those brain places so that you might be able to live through yet another day in truth. Thank you very much, all of you, for helping me and supporting me and for watching the show. This is the final broadcast, by the way. I'm taking the money and running. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. And we we had a number of other things to drop off on the show. I want to direct people to my sponsors, who have forgotten to mention for quite some time, actually. Reopen.nz and HoldenHealthCare.com. That's emphasis on the care. So it was quite a wonderful thing that these guys would turn up and support the show during the pandemic, the alleged pandemic. Sorry, should I correct myself? I think I should. Reopen.nz is a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. So if you have a freedom business in New Zealand, and what is a freedom business? Is there such a thing? If you have a business and you are a person that believes in freedom in general, go to reopen.nz and add your company to the list. There are a huge amount of services and providers and things of that nature that are all over this big list on reopen.nz. You get there and you become one of them, guys. It'll be freaking awesome. As well as the wonderful sponsor of the show, HoldenHealthCare.com. That's emphasis on the care. David Holden is a naturopathic oncologist specializing in biomedical therapies. The reason why most people will go into the mainstream medical establishment when they have scary things like cancer pop up is a number of reasons for that. But in general, if you understand, as David Holden does, not only that the body can heal itself provided it is given the right tools, but he knows what tools will actually work for you. But there is a caveat on this. The reason why you have cancers is because, what Dr. Leonard Caldwell says, making compromises against yourself. That's what he's cured 30,000 people plus of cancer. He's been rated nearly 50 times in his medical practices for curing people. Right? So he might know. And what David Holden told me when I had a health problem a couple years back was that you have two choices. You can change and live, or you can refuse to change and you can die. All right? That is basically the choice. The choices we make, the compromises against ourselves, is what is the cause and the prevention of the cure. So if you are very serious and you're willing to change and get yourself together and improve yourself, and change your life for the better. If you want to be round for your loved ones and you are prepared to commit to that and make these necessary changes and steps in your life in order to keep living, then I implore you, go to HoldenHealthCare.com, emphasis on the care. Now, there's a medical disclaimer on the website as well, if anybody from the Ministry of Health is watching. Do we want to get David Holden rated? It might up his legitimacy. I don't know. But anyway, the Vinny Eastwood Show archives are up, ladies and gentlemen, on the latest tab in the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and we have a number of wonderful episodes in there. And I believe just the other day we had a show on with a guy named Riku, and it turns out that if you scroll down on the latest archives of the Vinny Eastwood Show, there are dates and times from all the different various times that we've been doing the show, dating back to December 2010 when the show first began. And in terms of categories, what do you want to learn about? Do you want to learn about 1984? Do you want to learn about 4D chess? Do you want to learn about abuse? Do you want to learn about Behind the Green Mask? Do you want to learn about Dan Dix or gang stalking or Lauren Southern? You know, there are so many different categories on here that will take you some time to actually scroll down to the bottom. We've got stand-up comedy. We've got so much information available from those archives, ladies and gentlemen, dating back a very, very long time. And I implore you, if there's anything you are unsure about, anything you want to know more about, like water fluoridation, coming up later on this year, and in 2 weeks' time, we will be having a wee panel discussion with Kane Titchener and Mary Byrne from the New Zealand Fluoride Action Network. So get onto the latest show archives, ladies and gentlemen, thevinnieeastwoodshow.com/latest to get more information than you could possibly imagine. riveroflies.co.nz, for those of you in the United States who mispronounce the letter Z. You're Americans. You've got the whole freedom thing. You know, you could pronounce Z however you like. The River of Lies, the New Zealand Scamdemic, an investigative documentary, episode 1 is now free to view. Now, based upon the interactions with this documentary and the general public, what it does on the topic of the quote-unquote scamdemic is break down precisely in an investigative manner. Billy used to be part of the military. He used to be part of the police, and he conducted an incredible investigation which he compiled into this documentary. And currently we are working on River of Lies 2, Electric Boogaloo. So go and have a look at River of Lies episode 1 on YouTube for free, ladies and gentlemen, and you will be able to get not only the information that really does confirm what your suspicions might have been, but it's also done in such a manner that even somebody who believed in the official story would be able to see it, and they will see all of the people who officially told them one thing, and then it's followed by a clip that shows them saying the exact opposite. Time and time again, their own words are used against them. That's why this documentary is so important for people to see. Now, the Vinny Eastwood Show is, of course, a listener-supported broadcast, so if you do want to help the show continue, as some of the listeners who donated to get our new broadcast computer into the studio did, just to help keep the show on air, please do think about giving us a one-off gift through PayPal, or better yet, start up an automatic payment of a few dollars a month so that we can pay for the rent, the power, the internet and stuff of that nature. I don't really go anywhere. I don't really do anything else except this show. Now, the reason for that, of course, is because doing a show, I'm not sure if many people realize this, is, if you're not good at it, very, very stressful and difficult for people to get their head around. And most talk radio show hosts do not last the test of time. I've been here for at least 16 years, and I think we're coming up on 17 years of dutifully broadcasting all the time for the benefit of the listening audience, who are going through, in many cases, these changes and the awakening to truth by themselves. And we've had a number of people over the years tell us, including some high-profile names that are associated with the show, I'm not sure I'm permitted to disclose exactly who they are, that they credit the Vinny Eastwood Show as being their inspiration for either starting their own shows or getting the will to live back. Right? The show is about refreshment. You might listen to other shows, and by the end of it, your body will be in a stress response because they're sitting there telling you something very serious for a significant period of time, and there is a psychological impact to that which you might not be aware of, and I'll explain that in a minute. I'd like to thank our Patreons, Alan Mosdale and Hyro for sponsoring the show as well. If you want to have a mention on air, please do become a Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you can also get special rewards. Anybody who asks if they have donated, you will have my private phone number and you can give me a call and we can have a chat. Doesn't matter how much you've donated. All right, I would love to just have a chat with you, see how you are, see what you've been going through, and maybe we'll have a little bit of fun and a little bit of a conversation with you. All right, that's my service to you for providing support to the show. Thank you so much, each and every one of you who's been donated, especially those people who've been donating for many, many years, despite the fact that we cover so many different and seemingly contradictory topics on this show. It's all part of gaining a broader perspective so that not only will you know the information, but you'll be able to comprehend it in a calm and fun manner, hopefully, and then eventually, you might not get there, but you'll be able to explain things to people succinctly. You'll be able to teach people these things that you know in a decent manner, which is often very much lacking in the vast majority of society. Things appear to be very complicated and difficult and convoluted and things of that nature, but I like to specialize in a wee bit of the simplicity. So, the seriousness of the truth. How does this affect your brain? The prefrontal cortex, that part of the front of your brain, it's called the primate cortex. It's something that is common between us and apes, especially those in the US government. And we have a mechanism, right? You know how if you have a dam that stops water from flowing and then it controls the flow and it goes into other parts, down the waterfall and down the river and so on and so forth. Your brain works in much the same way. You've got three parts of it. You've got your prefrontal cortex, that's the river, all right? You've got your mammalian cortex, that's the dam. And then you've got your reptilian cortex, and that's the outflow of the dam. So what happens when you are ingesting serious information with your prefrontal cortex that is primarily concerned with logic, black and white thinking, and numbers? Well, if the traumatizing information is delivered in such a way that it's not fun or funny, your logical part of your brain will click off. Do you understand why so many truthers start to develop what would appear to be mental illness? What I would say is it's actually an adjustment period. You have to understand what it is that you know. And the only way you're going to do that is if you're actually thinking. And the only way to do that is by revealing traumatizing information to yourself, is to have fun with it to release the pressure. And this mechanism is very specific, and Holden Healthcare was kind enough to actually provide the physiological reason for this, is that when your emotions take over in the mammalian cortex, it's because of an overload in your logic. Okay, so you'll be getting all this information, and after about maybe 10, maybe even 15 minutes, the brain will start to realize that it can't just process this information in a logical way. It needs to then start processing it in an emotional way. So you'll have a talk radio show host yelling at you, screaming at you, telling you to wake up, telling you it's the Jews, it's the Freemasons, it's the aliens, it's the this, that, and the other, and your brain will respond by going, "Oh my God! Ah! It's so scary! I didn't even know about all of this stuff, and now I'm afraid of it! Even though nothing's actually physically changed in my existence!" Just from the information itself. When you tell a joke, on the other hand, the mammalian cortex will shut off being in control of your thoughts, and it will revert back to the primate brain, and you're back to thinking about logic. This is why comedians, you may have noticed, I certainly did earlier back in the day when I was learning about this stuff, are capable of teaching you significant amounts in relatively short periods of time, and you come away feeling okay with the information, even if the information is horrible. So, for instance, I bought a stepladder the other day, and I never knew my real ladder. So the idea here is that you can tell a joke, right? And people will be listening to that joke, and their brain will be interpreting it simultaneously. This is how you trigger that backlash response. Instead of the traumatizing information making you feel it, then making you feel tense, anxious, and stressed out, and what have you, it'll then trigger back to you again being able to think clearly and calmly. Now, there are some people, and I believe that this is... I'm not sure if I really believe in mental illness anymore. There's just conditions where trauma has rewired the brain in certain ways, and that person just needs to know how to reset their brain and deal with the information using certain techniques. Breathing, for example, reminding oneself who one is and where one is. For example, my technique that I've got here, it only takes a few seconds. And this happens to me regularly. It even just happened this morning. I was stressed out about something, and then I do my little routine. Where am I? I'm right here. What time is it? It's right now. Is there a threat coming to kill me in the next 60 seconds? Nope. Take a deep breath. You see how you feel a little bit calmer now? All right. The cause of anxiety is the future. When you remind yourself that you're right here, right now, and there's no actual threat coming to get you, your brain is suddenly reminded that there is no future. Okay? There is no past, there is no future. There's only this moment right here. All right? What are you stressed out in this moment right here? Is anything actually affecting you? No, it isn't. So that allows you to reset your brain. And if that technique works for you, it works for me. I mean, I created it. It's freaking better. But if that works for you, see, this is another way of coping with the stress of waking up, because it's not just the truth that really messes us around, is it? It's also the people who are obsessed with untruth, the people who lie to themselves, the people who have personality disorders and vicious ways of speaking, the people who are complaining and whinging, negative people. And they exist both in the truth movement and without. Ignorance doesn't pick a side. It can really infiltrate into virtually any movement. And that's what we talk about, the four horsemen of the apocalypse that Mark Passio enlightened me to: ignorance, apathy, laziness, and cowardice. And we all get affected by them from time to time. The question is, can we manage that stress so that we are able to think clearly, able to move forward, and able to get the job done? Yes, we are trying to obtain freedom here. We don't need to be sitting around worrying about everything 24/7, do we? No, we don't. Oh, good on you, Vinny. I don't really... You see, this is how things are supposed to work, right? I'm pretty sure all of you have had traumatizing experiences in your life. Every single one of you. All right? And don't make excuses and say, oh, somebody else has been traumatized more than me, so my trauma doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Your trauma matters massively. It matters to you because what has happened to you has changed you in ways that you may not appreciate because you haven't learned what joys are to behold when you accept what has happened to you, work through it, and get the job done, regardless of that. The amount of people that I've had on this show who've been through way worse than I will ever experience. People have been to jail for significant periods of time for absolutely no reason on made up and manufactured evidence. People who've had their businesses shut down or had their businesses infiltrated by people who made them get depressed and lose the motivation to continue doing those things for a living and have to have complete career changes, bad breakups and things of that nature. There are so many traumatized people out there who don't know how to process that trauma appropriately because they don't really understand exactly what's happened to them or the benefits of having had that happen. All right? Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer this honestly. Would you have ever been motivated to come to the truth without the suffering that you'd been to that caused you to question reality? No. You wouldn't have, would you? This is what Cypher did in the Matrix film. He betrayed the other people because when he woke up to reality by taking the red pill, he realized that reality is not as comfortable as living a lie, and he wanted to go back to living the lie. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen. I've had people helping out with this show one day and then quitting doing that and going to make crap tons of money doing stuff that they don't even really feel like doing. And they anesthetize themselves by feeding their addictions. And they placate themselves by buying things they don't need with money that they don't have. You right? You can't wake up somebody who is pretending to be asleep, David Icke said. And I understand that one of the main frustrations when you first wake up is that people don't want to listen to you. You know, you don't get invited to parties. You know, I was talking to a guy the other night and just said, like, yeah, it's strange, you know, when you try to talk about satanic ritual abuse at a party, you just don't seem to get invited back. You know, I just don't understand what's going on here. You know, it's just the truth. The truth is bad. You know, I remember one time I was at a festival trying to talk people about it. Somebody asked me about the quote unquote nonsense of the transgender issue, and I said, well, it's more like a demonic incursion. All right, you know how the Baphomet is neither female nor male. It's like a transgender goat with a big pentagram behind it. You know, that kind of thing. Dude, that stuff is infiltrating into our reality through pure demonhood. And I was trying to explain this to people about the methodologies of satanic ritual abuse, and the circle just went, oh, no, we don't want to talk about that stuff, you know, that kind of thing. We all just want to be positive all the time because we believe that if you ignore evil people and all the things that they do, suddenly they'll just stop doing it. Because they've experienced no consequences for it whatsoever by good men who could have done something about it. Really? Is that your philosophy, is it? How's that working out for you? It's almost like people think that other people are going to solve the world's problems for them. And it's just not freaking true. It's on you. It's on me. Each and every one of us has a responsibility. What? I don't believe that there's a possibility that anybody who is of sound mind and judgment would look at the issues that we have today in all of the world's history in context and think that there's any opportunity to sit on the sidelines and just let it play out. I recall a conversation that I had with the guitarist from 8 Foot Sativa, is a New Zealand heavy metal band, and came up with an idea for a t-shirt which says, "During the battle between good and evil, some will choose good, others will choose evil, but most will sit on the fence to see who comes out on top." We're just trying to burn the fence down. You have to choose what you devote your life to. And that choice is being granted to you by God, all right? For lack of a better singular syllable objection, because if you do want to describe God accurately, you'd say that he or she or the everything is a holographic fractal being projected by collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, all right? The universe made you. Okay, for some reason you got manifested onto this reality, and it might have been just because your dad refused to wear a condom or pull out. All right, now that regardless of what's actually happened to you during your life and the challenges that you've faced, you're still here. You've still got your sense of humor. You've still got your conscience. You've still got your creativity. Do you have any idea how rare that is? For somebody to suffer the things that you've gone through and to just retain those things and not lapse into a black cycle of addiction feeding and nihilism. Okay, society's been crafted specifically. It's like a river being channeled into another direction. They've just dug a big trench. If you normally flow down the river, you come out into the sea and you become one with the waters of the world. But if they channel that into a water fluoridation plant, for example, it messes up your waters, doesn't it? Somewhat. And you've resisted. Successfully. The entire world's propaganda and brainwashing, which has tried its best, and they're very good at their job, to stop you from waking up in the first place, and to make sure that if you do wake up, you be seen as crazy. And then, when you get seen as crazy, and you know you're not, you get real angry, and then you start to appear crazy too, because it starts to drive you nuts. That's the whole idea behind cult indoctrination. That feeling like you don't have a tribe, feeling like you don't have good friends, feeling like you don't have good mentors, feeling like you don't have somebody watching your back, psychologically, spiritually, physically, or whatever, is so freaking scary that it becomes very, very unlikely that you'll maintain your humor, your conscience, your morality, in favor of just doing what you're told and going along to get along. I know you've been tempted. I have been too, but I have the realization that all I do is what I have to do, and everything that I need will come my way when and in the quantity that I require. You know? Last show I did, I was very, very upset. And I probably shouldn't have broadcast on that day. But in my upsetness, and this happens to me is sometimes when somebody's promising me something, or I'm expecting something that is promised, and then that falls through, I will often get very upset, and then, if I'm lucky, and this usually happens, I will stop worrying about the things that have been promised, stop worrying about the things that have been brought through, and just put myself into action to get exactly what I need right then and there. Like the studio computer that I'm broadcasting on right now, for instance, that was all happening because I was so stressed out and had to solve the problem. And I could not have done that if I didn't have you guys. All right, the listeners, the mods, the network, all the people that I asked for help during a very desperate time, you guys understood my desperation and you helped me. Okay, I did what I had to do in order to get that support, and that's sometimes the most important lesson behind being a truth teller. Is that you need to recognize sometimes when you can't handle things by yourself entirely, but you can ask for help when you need it, and it will come. Now, I understand that there's a lot of you who've been going out and asking people for help, and they have not helped you. Stop asking them for help. Those particular people, they're not your friends. Okay? They're not your supporters. I understand that there's this term, my followers. I'm an influencer and I've got followers. And I'm like, these new kind of terms and things like that, it reminds me of a protest that I did I think it might have been 2008, where I was, outside Britomart in downtown Auckland. That's the central hub. It's like the Grand Central, it's like New York's Grand Central Station, but in Auckland, New Zealand. And outside we were having a bit of a protest, and the leftist protesters, which I didn't understand the difference between left and communism at the time because I was still learning, please forgive me, were talking about how, everything seems to be going wrong. They're just making mistakes. They're doing this because of bad decision making. And so I got up on the megaphone and I go, everything seems to be going wrong, or maybe it's going perfectly well because there is a planned agenda. And one of these activists, Omar, I believe his name was, came up and said to me, I don't think the punters want to hear that. He referred to the protesters who are trying to stand up for freedom as punters. All right? That's what you call people who come into a casino. Yeah, we're going to get the punters in and stuff. You got to be freaking kidding me. And I told him, these are individuals with their own minds. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful to call them that, or even to think of them that way. And this is how leftists think. They don't care about your individuality. They don't realize you can't touch a forest, that you can only touch a tree, and that the only thing that really exists and really has value is you, individually, and your own amazing contributions to this world. Look at all the people that you've helped. Look at all the nice things that you've done. Look at all the contributions that you've actually made in this world that aren't negative, degrading. Okay? And you should be frickin' proud of yourself. Give yourself a wee bit of a pat on the back, for frickin' hell. Just give yourself a bit of credit sometimes, guys. Seriously. You are amazing. You are powerful, you are intelligent, and you are fun, and you are skilled. Every single listener that I have spoken to, fits that profile. So quit denying yourself. All right? You are totally awesome. And sometimes we all need a bit of a reminder of that. I get that all the time on the show. Vinny, we love you. You're awesome. Thank you so much for that show and what have you. But you guys don't get that if you're not doing a radio show and things of that nature. And I don't think that's fair. I think you should be doing the work. I think you should be getting people supporting you and giving you props and things like that. I just think you need a bit of faith in yourself. And to recognize just how frickin' awesome you are, and that to deny the world access to that awesomeness does the entire world a disservice, right? You might think, oh, well, I can't change anything, though. It's like, yes, you can. If you change yourself, you've changed the world. All right? That may sound kind of like airy-fairy, but it's true. Every tiny little thing that you say, every little thought you have, every little word you use, they have a resonant frequency, and it changes the things that are exposed to that resonant frequency. It might be your family, it might be your friends. You might think that they're not listening to you, but they can't unhear what you say. You understand? Nothing you do is meaningless. Nothing you do has no value. unless what you're doing is nothing. You understand that, right? And the stress of being somebody as intelligent as you, as capable as you, as good as you, while you're being surrounded by people who don't recognize that, don't back you up, don't have your back, that will cause you to doubt yourself. And I try to remind people all the time that self-doubt is what's killing you. It's what's giving you anxiety. You know what people really respond to and people really love and things of that nature is confident, positive people. Okay? And it's very hard to be confident. It's very hard to be positive because we're not an anti-sponge. We are totally a sponge. Everything that we hear, anytime somebody insults us and asks us to, why haven't we taken our medication? Why aren't we wearing our tinfoil hat? This kind of stuff frustrates you and gets you really down, right? Especially when you're telling people your ideas that you haven't yet fulfilled, that you haven't yet started. There was something Marcus Aurelius said, words to the effect that if you tell people what you're planning to do, you will demotivate yourself from doing it. Don't tell anybody what you're doing until it's done. Show people what you've done. Don't tell them what you're about to do. You understand? This is what happens. So, for example, if you tell somebody something you're about to do, it might be making a movie, it might be finishing an artwork or something like that, and they're negative in response. Oh, that's crap, you should do this, you should do that. You go like, oh, what the hell's the point in doing this? Nobody approves of me or whatever. Because we all have a problem with self-worth. All right, that's the reason why we come to the truth, is because we've been treated in some measure like we don't have value, and that's caused us to question our self-worth, and that's why we're so sensitive to the criticisms of others. And so when you don't get that negative criticism on the other, you get a positive criticism like, oh, that's a really good idea, bro, can't wait to see it. You get an endorphin and a dopamine release into your body that makes you feel good, even though you haven't achieved anything yet. And then it demotivates you from actually finishing the thing because you've already gotten the reward that you wanted. A reward that is woefully inadequate at maintaining your self-esteem. Self-esteem comes from committing esteemed acts. You have a talent, whatever it might be, just do it. Okay, just do it. Don't make any excuses. You got 10, 15 minutes free now. Turn off the show. Start going and doing it. All right? The second you have any motivation to do something in your life that is more important to what you're listening to on the internet and what you're watching or whatever on TV, turn it off. Go and do it. Go and do it now. And for those of you who are still listening, maybe you haven't listened hard enough yet, all right? Maybe your garage is filthy and you've been wanting to clean it out for years and it's cluttering up your headspace simultaneously. Clear it. Maybe your room is filthy. Maybe the dishes aren't done. Maybe the washing isn't hung out. Even just these tiny little ordinary everyday things that everybody has to go to, right? I remember somebody was doing a Google search one time just to see what the predictions of Google would be for their next word, and the words were "do celebrities," and one of the top hits was "do celebrities poop?" Right? There's actually people curious out there as to whether or not celebrities actually have to go to the bathroom. You understand? We're all human, and people even figured out that basic stuff isn't there. So, are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating good food? Are you cooking it yourself? Are you preparing it yourself? Are you using organic ingredients and things of that nature? All of these things are just the very basics for your physical existence. Okay, once you get that physical existence sussed out, then everything else should come into place. Andrea Adams is having brunch at the moment. Good on you, darling. She is getting some work done. She's getting it done. She's getting some cooking done. She's cooking for herself. Good on you, Andrea. And I'm lovely to have you here. And she's saying, wow, I caught a live for once. Hello, Vinny and everyone. Hello to you too, Andrea, sorry. And we've also got Luna Longshadow, who she says, catch you later, guys. I've got a gardening client. Yes, good on you, darling. Go out there and get that work done. And we got Kiwi Radio NZ in the Twitch chat. He say, how you doing, Vinny? Hope you had a good time decompressing at the gig and feeling rejuvenated, bro. Don't I sound it? Do I sound rejuvenated? You know, that's what happens when the West Bank gets invaded by Israel. It gets rejuvenated. Anyway, I'm doing fantastically. Thank you, bro. And in no small part to you. So, I was having a bit of a stressful day, and then I get a text from Ralphie saying he wants me to come out to a gig that he's filming. He's got a +1 ticket. And so, even though I was feeling a little bit demotivated and a little bit stressed, I was thinking maybe this is exactly what I need to do, and I went out and I did it, and I came home very, very sore. I'm not sure if any of you know how hard Vinny dances, but I can assure you it's titanium hard. Oh yes, darling. I can cut a rug, mate. I can shred a rug. I can mulch a rug, bro. I just love to boogie. And there's two reasons for that. Okay, so number one, music affects every single part of the brain. All right, simultaneously, your whole body. You remember how I was saying before about how you have to kind of like remind yourself to have a bit of a joke once in a while, in order to like figure out exactly what you're doing and that sort of thing. Stay motivated, etc., and not be lapsed up in the emotion. Now, part of the therapeutic nature of music and dance. Ancient cultures, name me one ancient culture that you've ever heard of that doesn't have its own traditional songs, its own traditional dances, that the ancient tribes would be singing and dancing every day. Okay? There was an article that came out that says people who go to music festivals experience overwhelmingly less depression and anxiety than other people who do not. And there's two reasons for that. Music activates all areas of the brain. Okay? It gets it into alignment. Your dance moves every part of your body, provided you don't do what is known in New Zealand as the can't be fucked shuffle, where you just kind of like sit there and just sort of like nod your head real slowly, bro. Oh yeah, this is a good song, man. New Zealanders were remarkably unenthusiastic people, as John Ansell enlightened me to, and I was just like, actually, John, that is a profound realization and a very good observation that you've made there. New Zealanders are unenthusiastic. We just don't care, bro. I remember when I was a student in Dunedin, and just remember the enthusiasm the further south that you go in New Zealand. When we go south, it gets colder. When you're in the northern hemisphere, when you go south, it gets warmer, right? But in our country, it's warmer in the north, colder in the south, and the further south you go, the less enthusiastic people tend to become. Or at least this has just been my experience. Because when I was a student in Dunedin studying film and media studies and communication studies and history and Japanese and things of that nature, I found the lack of enthusiasm rather apparent, and I didn't realize that was what was going on at the time. I was at a party and we were just having a few drinks, and we were about to go out into town and have a really good time, and this guy behind me next to me is from the South Island, and he's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a really good night, bro. And I turned to my mate, Liam, who's from Auckland, and I said to him, man, these guys don't feel very enthusiastic, bro. And he says to me, are you kidding? I've never seen him this excited. It's just, like, seriously, it's a droll, drab thing. And that's what happens when you live in this country. Why? It's because this country, whether you like it or not, I know a lot of you listeners do live here, and I'm sorry about that. We are a nationwide retirement home / beach community. Okay? You know those people who really don't want to be enthusiastic anymore because they're burnt out and they want a slower pace of life? In New Zealand, that is your go-to, and you don't have any other options. All right? You want to live a big, energetic life. You want to be in the middle of it all. You want to make something happen. Not here, baby. Not here. We've got this tall poppy syndrome, you see, and a lack of enthusiasm to boot. So if you've got a project or something of that nature, and the chances are that you talk to anybody, they're not going to help you, and in fact they're probably going to demotivate you. New Zealand, oh my goodness, we have got to get our crap together. And I think partially this is because of the laws that govern this country. For instance, did you know that we're allowed 1,000 times more glyphosate in our drinking water than is allowed under European drinking water standards? In European drinking water, it is illegal to put fluoride into it. In New Zealand, it is mandatory. You see, if you've got liver problems, and a lot of toxins do get processed by the liver, as well as New Zealand having a significant drinking culture, because of course there's nothing else to do, then your liver is going to get sick. And my liver had a big problem the other day, and it was because of stress and years of it, just ongoing stress, and that also affects the liver, and poor diet and bad habits and things of that nature, which I'm taking significant strides in changing. But this is when I discovered the first sign that you have a liver problem, is because you're overtoxified, right? The first sign that your liver is in trouble is apathy. You just stop caring about things. I remember one of my mates told me, one basic rule is I just don't give a fuck. It's just like, well, dude, that's the liver talking. The liver can't care about anything, and it puts enzymes into your body to just say, like, bro, stop caring about stuff. I've got too much to worry about down here processing all these toxins that you're poisoning me with. And then you have a look at what are actually the causes of liver disease, and everybody immediately jumps, oh, it must be alcohol. And while, yes, some people can drink too much, and that will put a significant pressure on the liver, leading to cirrhosis and things of that nature. But also there's other conditions, such as fatty liver syndrome and things of that nature. So you have sugar, right? Sugar, in particular, is an absolute killer of the liver. There was this documentary presentation by a doctor who said outright, and the documentary is called, I think, Sugar, the Bitter Truth. He says sugar is poison, right? As well as, on top of that, even if you've got organic bread, most of the times it hasn't been fermented for long enough. In New Zealand we make bread every day. That's not how bread's supposed to be made. It's supposed to be like cured for like months or so, or something like that. I don't know the exact process, but I know it doesn't have enough time to ferment properly so that your body can digest it. So bread, carbs, they put pressure on the liver, not to mention the fact that most of them are grown with pesticides, herbicides, and goodness knows what kind of additives are put into the water, like fluoride, chlorine, lead, arsenic, and all the other derivatives that actually come with the fluoride that we put in our water, because it's not pharmaceutical grade, and it just comes out of the phosphate fertilizer industry, which pulverizes rocks, runs sulfuric acid over it, and then, hey presto, you've got your phosphate fertilizer and an incredibly toxic sludge flurry, which we call fluoride. That's what we've got here, and that's what people are drinking. That's what people are washing their kids with. That's what people are washing their clothes with, right? There's a movie called Dark Waters, starring Mark Ruffalo, and it was a biopic of this lawyer who discovered these quote-unquote forever chemicals, all right, fluoride being one of them, leaching into groundwater and being used in products that people use every day, and it's killing Americans. It's killing the world. Like practically 99% of the world's population has some form of this forever chemical in their bloodstream. They're poisoning the earth, and they're poisoning all of us. And all of these different things that happen around us, our anxiety, our stress, our bone density issues or cancers or whatever, are all known symptoms of being exposed to long-term toxicity of this nature. Okay? And that's what's hard for being a conspiracy theorist, is that people go like, oh, why is this happening? Why is that? It's because of this. Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Like, bro, I know. Okay, I'm not just thinking about it. I've done thousands of hours of research. You disrespectful cow. You know? Come on, bro. Listen to me. You might live through this. It's like, dude. I understand the frustration. I've been there, the yelling, the screaming, the frickin' panic attacks, and the worries and the anxiety and all of that kind of crap. Dude, when you're doing about it, when you're doing something about it, on the other hand, all of those dark thoughts, they just seem to go away. You know? Wonderfully. And Ralphie says in the Twitch chat, ever heard of that quote-unquote gut feeling? The gut-brain axis consists of bi-directional communication between the brain and the gut, which links emotional and cognitive centers of the brain. Hence, the liver and gut are known as the second brain. Well, not to correct you there, Ralphie, but it's actually the third brain. Right? We've got neurons in the gut. You get that gut feeling. And the other is the heart. The heart, the brain, the gut, okay? The three centers, the mind, the body, the soul, right? And this is how we interact in what I call congruence, all right? When your heart, your brain, and your gut give you the same answer. Do I care about my mate? You ask your brain that question. This is what David Icke enlightened me of, that there was a psychologist who would ask people the same question 3 times and ask them to answer that question with their brain, then their heart, then their gut. And she was surprised that they kept getting different answers. And this is because people aren't operating under congruency. They're not living with pure truth. When you are, your brain, your heart, and your gut know what the right thing is by instinct, and they're in alignment. And this is what I'd really like to achieve myself, is to be like fully aligned, and have all of the other things and challenges and stuff like that in my life that seem to be muddying the waters and darkening my thoughts and so on and so forth. I'd like all that stuff to be worked on and go away at some point. And that's what's difficult with most people, is that they've got so many problems that are facing them simultaneously that solving or working on any one of those problems becomes a significant challenge. And I don't want people to go through that, man. Seriously. Life shouldn't be that hard. It's meant to be hard. Yes, it is. But it's not meant to be so hard that you can't actually do anything. You know? I believe that there's significant amounts of evidence that just having good friends who know exactly who you are, friends who are honest with you when you're doing good or doing wrong, friends who support you and are around you and collaborate with you, is probably one of the best cure-alls for most of society's ills. You know? Have you got good mates? You know? I do. But the problem is that we live so far apart, and we're working on so many different projects and stuff like that. I just remember the bands like Van Halen and all of those other things back in the day before the days of the internet. If you wanted a band, you practically had to live in the same house, so that you could jam every day and get good and become a success. And everybody's got jobs and lives in different locations all over the city, and making sure that everybody's coordinated to be in the same place at the same time so that you can make something together seems like this big frickin' rigmarole now. Even with the advent of all the communications and all the organization and all the developments of these various technologies, it's become even harder to organize people and to get them together, isn't it? What a strange and terrible thing. I got this whole penchant, I think, for being there for people at their lowest point. And that costs me. Right? Anytime I've had a conversation with you about any of the bad stuff that you've gone through, I process that stuff and it becomes a part of me, and I can't get rid of it. This is probably true of a lot of therapists and talk radio show hosts as well, is why we appear to be such volatile people who have difficulty dealing with their stuff, because they're not just dealing with their stuff, they're dealing with all of yours too. Oh my goodness. Mate. And DK is just commenting, ha, Vinny rates himself on the dance floor. He says he wants proof. Oh, dude, if you want proof, you're going to have to come to a festival with me, mate. But yeah, maybe I'll on my birthday party that we're having on the 12th of December. By the way, if you're a listener, a supporter, a donor, anything like that, please contact me, email me through the contact page of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and flick me an email, and I'll send you an invite to my 40th birthday party. That's right, I'm becoming an old bastard. Finally. And I think I've got the grumpiness to go with it, I've always wanted to be old, because then the things that I know and the things that I say would appear unsurprising to come out of a mouth as young as I. That would be great. It would be almost like, it gives me legitimacy. But I know as soon as I get old, I know a lot of you are well past your 40s. I'm not calling you old or whatever. You just are. But the whole thing about it is that we've got a society that thinks that getting old is a bad thing, right? I remember this movie called Breast Men. It was basically a biopic of the two leading plastic surgeons in Los Angeles, and this one woman was giving a presentation on what this is actually doing to women, and culturally how the United States at the time, and I guess probably even more so now, really looks at changes in the body that are happening. Like, for example, she said that in the United States, we are obsessed with those young, beautiful, perky breasts and things of that nature because they think old, saggy breasts are just like gross and disgusting or whatever. But in Africa, they interpret it differently. They're actually seen as a sign of wisdom, of growing up and having motherhood and development. Right? That's the difference between how we're looking at it. We're looking at it in a very shallow way. Don't worry about getting old. Don't worry about getting sick. In general, we shouldn't worry at all, because that ages you faster. I remember how many people are out there constantly doing their hair and wearing nice outfits and using slather loads of cream on their face while they dehydrate themselves by not drinking enough water and age themselves prematurely by not getting enough sleep, and also subsequently by stressing out about things that they shouldn't be stressing out about. It's like, if you took care of the things that you're doing that are prematurely aging you, rather than just trying to shallowly on the surface level try and make yourself look like you're still fuckable, that kind of thing. It's like Bill Burr said, that you're not looking hot when you get yourself plastic surgery. You don't make yourself look more attractive. You make yourself look weird. And I think that this has come to be like basically a mental illness that our society is operating under, because instead of obsessing about the alignment of your brain and your heart and your gut and the thoughts therein that can then work in congruence to facilitate your conscious creation of new and wonderful discoveries and items and inventions, etc., you're instead just focused on only how you look, specifically. Now, it's not to say that how you look doesn't matter, okay? It does. It maybe matters more than anything else. That may seem very ironic considering what I've just said, but there's a very good evolutionary reason for it. Breeding. Okay? It is hard-wired, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies, you see a hot guy who's got a big V shape to his bodies, big broad shoulders, huge biceps and strong thighs and sleek calf muscles and a six-pack. You will immediately listen to him more than some guy with man boobs and a fat gut and a fat ass. Won't you? Just like if you're looking at a woman who looks like she hasn't bathed in a week and is wearing trash bags or something like that, and has no tits to speak of, and is just like embroiled in just like this kind of cacophony of rolls of flubber, that kind of girl you're not going to pay as much attention to. Some real hottie comes up to you who's got a tight body and wide hips and large breasts and a beautiful symmetrical face with long clean hair. On the other hand, you will pay more attention to her. All right? It's physiological. It is hard wired, ladies and gentlemen. And it comes down to first impressions. First impressions, they say, you don't get a second chance at, and first impressions last. And there's a very significant amount of evidence behind that old saying. For example, the brain will create a first impression of what you're looking at within 1/1000th of a second. 1/1000th of a second. That's how long you have to make a good first impression. That means you don't have enough time to speak. You don't have enough time to have an expression on your face. You don't have enough time to do anything except look wealthy and healthy. That's it. Period. If you look like you are dressed well, that you're affluent, and you look like you work out and your body is strong and fertile, people will have a good impression of you immediately off the bat. Immediately. And 75% of those people who have a bad impression of you because you don't look as healthy or as fit as perhaps you should be, and the state that you've let yourself get into through neglect of your physical vessel, which is not just a means of getting your head to meetings, in the words of Sir Ken Robinson. All right, you will be suffering, and I think a lot of conspiracy theorists suffer this too, because we're not the prettiest people. The prettiest people in the world, I think, Bill Burr, I think, brought this up. They don't do anything because they don't have to. They get the good jobs because it's so easy, because people want to listen to them and things of that nature. Attraction makes life so much easier and makes people pay attention to you, makes people have good first impressions of you. That's why people are so obsessed with their appearance, and they unfortunately realize, or maybe don't realize, that what's on the inside does count, but not as a first impression. Okay? only 25% of people after their first impression will consider changing it if you're actually, really awesome or something like that, and their first appearance was like, oh, this person's ugly. Only 25%. So it means that 75% of people, if you haven't gotten your shit together and doing what you should be doing to be healthy, to make your resources work for you and things of that nature, they just won't want to have anything to do with you. You're like kneecapping yourself, and I'm perpetually perplexed by this, that people have let themselves become so, I think, enamored with the concept of looking good that they don't want to work on their internals whatsoever, or so preoccupied with their internals that they are not looking after their physical body. All right, it's out of balance. We kind of need to do both. And, don't call me a hypocrite here, because I know I am. All right, I'm overweight, and I've been struggling with my weight since my parents' divorce when I was like 9. I didn't know that I was ever skinny until I saw a picture of myself on a family holiday when I was 9 years old, and I was just, oh my God, I was skinny at one point. I would like to be able to do that again. That would be great, And so I try, and then I fail, and then I try again, and I just keep on trying, and it's so difficult. So I'm not trying to put anything on anybody else, man. It is tough. Anybody who's ever been overweight for a significant period of time in their life who wants to change will tell you that it is not easy, that it is tough. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't be too worried about it and things of that nature, because you're going to have enough on your plate just trying to keep the motivation and the strength within you to keep going in. Andrea Adams has got the right impression. She says, fact, I'm going to a body weight fitness class this afternoon. Good on you, darling. You're working on it. This is the only thing that people shouldn't do, is nothing. Right? Right? Just don't do nothing. Do something, anything, regardless of whatever is happening to you on that thing. Hey, oh my goodness. And Andrea says she's a bit unfit at the moment, fixing that in the new year. Just been lazy and tortured lately. No energy, like someone's zapped it all out of me. You know what? There's probably other reasons for that. And I think I've been feeling that too. Like the last 5 years in a row, I've gone through so much, We had a terrorism attack in New Zealand that resulted in Vinny Eastwood getting demonetized. So I've been broke ever since 2019. And then, of course, directly after that, we had the pandemic where I got deplatformed. So not only am I broke, I don't have a listenership like I used to. And I may not ever get it back because of the shadow banning. So it's like, oh my goodness, that's stressful. And so that means I have to keep working even though I need rest. And that stresses me out and makes it so much difficult. Haven't we all gone through that? This last 5 years have just been crap. Like, really? It's been a crap 5 years in a row, ever since 2019. And I think that we all need a holiday. We all just need to chill out. We all need to get together and have a good time and realize there's actually stuff still worth fighting for, stuff still worth living for. I remember the quote from Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those are the stories that stayed with you. Those are the stories that meant something even if you are too small to understand why. And I think I know now that the folk in those stories had lots of chances of giving up and turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. You need to keep that fight in your hearts and your minds and your guts, don't you? There's kind of a difference between men and women on this, the way that we deal with conflict. Man sees spider, man kills spider, because woman gets scared by spider, you know? This is a natural thing. But the way that we conflict with other humans, you can't just squash another human unless you're really big like me. I trained in big man MMA. I'm 6'6", so if any guy with small man syndrome is giving me static, just 2 moves. First, you bop him, and then you stomp him. All right, fight's over. And women, on the other hand, they don't compete with men generally on an even playing field, because we have different motivations and things like that to do. They compete with other women. And when men compete with other men, we build stuff that's better than the other guy. We outcompete him, that kind of thing. Or we beat the crap out of him because we're physically bigger or stronger or something like that. Women, on the other hand, instead of damaging the things that you physically do in this world, that you create by doing something better, instead of attacking you physically because they're stronger than you and they can make you submit that way, women instead go after reputation. All right? Because that's what women thrive off. If a woman's got a bad reputation and all the other women are talking bad about them and things of that nature, that really hurts girls, man. That's why so many young girls commit suicide in high school and things like that, because of the huge amount of bullying that they get subjected to by other girls. It's vicious. It's a nasty way of going at a thing, because it's not fair a lot of the time. It's sometimes mixed with lies. They gossip and they connive and they manipulate and they turn people against you. They defame your reputation. They tell everybody under the sun what you've done, whether or not you actually did it, and whether or not there's context behind your actions, or whether or not there's possible understanding that can be breached to about why somebody did what they did, if true, that kind of thing. But that doesn't matter, right? And men have this inability to deal with that kind of abuse, much of the same way that if a man is abusing a woman physically, she's got no comeback to that, other than to destroy his reputation. And the guy's reputation being destroyed by a woman, he's got no comeback, except to be able to hit her, right? That's the conflict between men and women, and the reason why there's so many men's kind of circles right now who are just like, oh, I don't want to be with women anymore, they're all bitches, and things of that nature. It's like, man, they're partially right. Society changed women so significantly in the past few decades that nowadays that sweet, kind, loving mother figure who loves her husband and supports him and takes care of him while he goes out and wins the bread to bring it home, and puts a roof over her head and massages her feet and puts food on the table and things like that. That partnership is very rare these days, because women have been manipulated by the Central Intelligence Agency and various other authorities to think that they're equal to men. You're not equal to men. You're different. Men aren't equal to you. we're different. And the ways in which we're different is how we complement each other. All right? Like on a film crew, for example. You have a director who's good at having a vision. You have a cinematographer who actually is capable of getting the shot that the director is telling him to do because he knows what lenses to use. He knows what frame rate to use. He knows where to put the lights and things of that nature. You've got writers who know how to tell a story and that kind of thing. You see, it all works in complementary partnership in that manner, you know? And men and women basically operate effectively when they're partnered together, because the woman will see things that the man does not, and the man will see things that the woman does not. Men will do things without thinking, and women will think about things without doing anything about it. All right? So unless the woman's got a man and the man's got a woman, and they understand the strengths and the weaknesses of each of them and fulfill their roles as basically ordained by just programming, you know, thousands of years of quote-unquote evolution. This is how we are. All right? And it ain't going to change. Men and women fundamentally, and the things that drive us and the things that we want and desire have not changed in thousands of years of recorded history. We're still the same animals. We just have technological and propaganda mechanisms that have made us forget those unique and special elements about ourselves, our sexuality, our contributions to the world, and our interactions with the other sex. It hasn't changed. We're still the same, and it ain't going to change anytime soon. And anybody who actually believes that it does is wrong. And you know what happens when you live under an operated thought process that is wrong? You become mentally ill. All right? Like people who believe in communism. All right? And I mean that quite literally. There is a connection between, if you are a leftist who believes in collectivism, the chances are basically assured that you either are going to become mentally ill from that belief because it's incongruent with reality, or you were mentally ill in the first place and out of touch with reality, hence why somebody was capable of manipulating you into believing you something that is out of touch with reality too. Oh, this seems to suit me. You know, and that's not to say that everybody who believes in collectivism and you know, everybody together and everybody's all equal is mentally ill. They just could be wrong at that point, and they might be able to be convinced otherwise. But it's not going to be you who convinces them. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be the next guy or the guy after that. It's going to be like the seventh different person at a seventh different time in their life who tells them the exact same thing that you and I told them. That's when they'll consider changing their mind on average. And remember, that's on a bell curve, so some people might be quick-witted and smart enough and honest enough with themselves to need to only be told once, whereas somebody else might need to be told 100 times, at 100 different places, from 100 different people saying the exact same thing before they'll let go of that cult indoctrination. Right? Right? We're all trying to live in a society that is completely mentally ill and dominated by a belief structure that rewards mental illness with acclaim. All right? These people are completely nuts. Everybody should be like them. And what do you think the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was so popular? These bitches are nuts. They're freaking crazy as hell. They're obsessed with their appearance, hand over fist. They've got almost no spiritual or psychological development because they didn't need to. They're wealthy and they're hot. Okay? And so all they'd put their attention to is their wealth and how good they look. And that's why they get so many surgeries and go through so many husbands and so on and so forth. And have to party so much to distract themselves for the fact that they are actually worthless mental patients. All right? I will say that again. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, if you look up to them, if you watch them, what you are doing is you're being influenced in your thinking and in your desires by worthless mental patients. It's a bad thing to do to your brain places, man. Seriously. You need to be watching things that for people that you can look up to, you know. That's why I love doing the show for so many years. I've gotten to talk to the most amazing heroes that this world has ever produced, actually interact with them. And they tell me things like, Vinny, you've hit the nail on the head when I'm explaining something complex. Or they'll tell me things like, Vinny, that was the best show I was ever done, man, that was so fun. You know? These are great people who've accomplished amazing things in life, and they have given me props. And I'm like, oh my God. Thank you so much. And the same is true of you guys. You know, every time you give me a compliment or something like that, my heart sings. And that's why I love the mods so much, because they block all those people who insult me and frustrate the living hell out of me. Like, for example, the other day when I was trying to raise some money for this new studio computer, it's working beautifully, by the way, isn't it? Give me a shout out in the chat rooms if the audio and the video seeming particularly fantastic. If they're not looking particularly fantastic, I'll have to run a few more tests and things of that nature, but it's a side issue. Anyway, the Truth Freeze has come up with a really good list of names there. Smedley Butler and Bill Cooper and Gary Webb. Now, I'm not 100% sure who Gary Webb is, but I know who Smedley Butler and Bill Cooper are. Now, so he's highlighted people who are heroes, people who have sacrificed a significant amount, and in some cases have actually been sacrificed because of their sacrifices that they've made, you know. Bill Cooper assassinated outside his home, been surveilled for weeks and months, people tearing up around there. Mate, he was the precursor to Alex Jones, and he hated Alex Jones. Okay? This is before Alex Jones was even a thing. There was Bill Cooper, behold a pale horse, being able to explain concisely and accurately the dynamics of the New World Order and how it actually works so that people could obtain clarity, you know? That was just so sad to lose him, right? To have him assassinated. The New World Order takes people from us all the time by various different means. Some of our people die of cancer that just comes out of nowhere and we don't know why. What if it was given to them deliberately? You know? What if it wasn't a result of the lifestyle that they've been choosing or the compromises they're making against themselves? What if there's such a thing as a cancer virus? Now, I don't necessarily believe anymore in the concept of a virus, but I do understand that all matter is conscious. So if you put some nasty matter and toxins that have consciousness into your body through your skin, which is supposed to protect you, right, from other toxins from just getting directly into your bloodstream where they can affect you, something might actually happen to you that you really didn't see coming, and it'll just come up out of nowhere and then you're gone. You know, this happened to Evelyn Gilbert, who was probably the one person who I was closest with the most in the New Zealand Truth Movement, because anytime I was suffering in emotional terms and struggling with my complex post-traumatic stress, she'd set me right, she'd explain it to me, she'd have empathy for me, and losing her was just a huge blow, both to me and her husband, the two men who loved her the most, you know? I loved her as a mentor and a friend, and he loved her as a loyal, caring husband, because she was just such an amazing and beautiful woman. You know, that's the kind of thing that people don't really understand, is that the loss of these heroes, and DK's pointed out Jordan Maxwell as well. If you go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and you run a search for Jordan Maxwell, I've interviewed him a number of times, including his his apprentice, his Padawan, Jeffrey. Freaking hell, I've forgotten Jeffrey's last name. It'll come to me. I'm halfway through the second hour, and I've been ranting solo for this whole time, so you'll have to forgive me if a few things escape me from this point onwards. Hey, Jeffrey Matt, I got it, I'm the man. And he gave us the last broadcast of Jordan Maxwell talking about the cult of the Black Sun. And that is also on the website as well. You know, it was kind of like our funeral farewell episode with Jordan speaking to us from beyond the grave. Once their knowledge is gone and you can't interact with them anymore, the world misses out on it. Especially if these people were so good. I mean, I don't know how hard it's going to hit me when someone like G. Edward Griffin dies. He's like the godfather of the modern truth movement and the movement against statism and collectivism. It made such huge contributions in many ways to so many different broadcasts. I even saw him on RCR. Radio. This is an alternative truth radio station that started up in New Zealand after its organizer, Voices for Freedom, stole the list of 70,000 donors off of my mate Billy TK after the election. And then suddenly she's got millions of dollars to spend on top quality broadcast radio where people will only cover a certain level of the truth so that they can get the low-hanging fruit. Now that's a good effort. All you had to do was piggyback off of somebody else's genuine personality that attracted hope and gave people the confidence to come out and speak the truth in New Zealand, even at a time as volatile as the pandemic. Even G. Edward Griffin got on that radio station, and that's great, you know. Anybody who's on there, anybody who gets interact, a lot of the guests that I've had on this show are getting onto RCR, and I don't want to disparage any of them or whatever, apart from the creator of Voices for Freedom, Claire Deeks, who is a thief and a psycho. All right, man, interacting with her on the phone. Like during an election, she'd call me up out of the blue, didn't even know who I was talking to, and was like yelling at me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just have to talk to Billy about that. And she goes, and then hangs up the phone on me. You don't want to work with somebody like that. Hell no. Hell no. Those people are stressful, little narcissistic, mentally ill pieces of shit. And there's a lot of them in the truth movement, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of them. I might even say the majority. Okay? Most people ain't worth your time, folks. They ain't worth listening to. There is a reason for that. It's because they are a member not of the truth movement, but of what Mark Passio calls the My Truth movement. They don't want freedom for you as their priority. They don't want freedom for everybody as their priority. They think that as long as everybody else is a slave, that's fine. But me personally, I want my freedom. Hence the My Freedom movement. I'm saying My Truth movement there, but yes, that's what these people are calling themselves. They call themselves the Freedom Movement. But they're not about freedom. You can't be for freedom unless you are first and foremost about truth. And somebody who steals support from other people who are speaking the truth, accumulates it for themselves, doesn't tell those people how they got their email address, and goes and solicits donations for them in the millions of dollars range, okay, that person ain't into freedom or truth at all. And everybody who's interacting with that is going to be given little tidbits of information, little things that are out of context, little things that don't give you the wider perspective, little things that don't give you the full understanding. All right? Now, there's a standard approach to that, and it's for good reason. People who lie to themselves and lie for a living don't like truth. They don't. So if you give them too much, they're not going to listen to you anymore because you said one little thing that they disagreed with. So if you're a clever marketer rather than an honest human being, you can manipulate that fact into a benefit for you. And you can grow massive organizations and you can solicit huge amounts of donations without actually having to make anybody face the consequences of the fact that they are lying to their effing selves. People are lying to themselves all the time. Lying to themselves when they think that they can understand the totality of this system. You can't. I can't. There ain't nobody who can. Period. Nobody can understand all of the things that the New World Order are doing simultaneously. The best you can hope for, as far as I'm concerned, is at least having a very good set of rules to follow, so that when new things that you don't fully understand turn up, you're capable of investigating them, figuring them out, putting them into context, and then understanding them. Okay? It's a process. You'll never understand everything. Okay? You never understand everything, but Andrea Adams says she's weary about that Liz Gunn too. Something don't sit right with me about her. You know, I asked Liz Gunn, like when I was deplatformed, when I was put into prison for protesting for people's rights to not be locked down and live under a tyrannical government and banned from the internet for 6 freaking weeks, and after having been New Zealand's alternative media, I was New Zealand's alternative media, and still have been for the last 16 years. I asked Liz numerous times to interview me, please, because I need help, you know? Did I get a single reply? Not freaking one. So I asked people that she knew, who were big fans of mine too, to ask her on my behalf. Did I get a single reply? Not freaking one. Why? I don't know. Haven't been given any information as to why not. And then I get palmed off to RCR Radio, which is headed by Claire Deeks. Ask them for an interview. Do they interview me? No, they don't. Okay? These people have just like fused their little things to like just keep me and Billy the hell out of it, because during the 2020 election, Billy was the 3rd most popular choice for Prime Minister in the country for a Freedom Party. That has never happened before. And with any of the new freedom parties that are coming out, by the look of them, by the look of their organizations and things of that nature, that ain't ever going to happen again until somebody comes out in the way that Billy did. What did Billy do that was different to what all the other political candidates are doing is he told the whole truth every single time he was asked a question about any issue. He wasn't afraid to call out liars. He wasn't afraid to call out propaganda. He wasn't afraid to call out conspiracies. And in a society that was completely locked down, totally propagandized, and totally the victim of conspiracies, that kept people alive. Literally. The amount of people that he tells me that he got calls from who were like an inch from committing suicide, and he talked them out of it and calmed them down because they trusted him. Right? And then he got arrested alongside me, and not only that, and this is the big kicker, Voices for Freedom's financier, Michael Kelly, who works with Claire Deeks, then reported Billy to the Serious Fraud Office, or the Electoral Commission, rather, for taking donations from him. Donations that he just gave him. and declared that they weren't properly reported on, and that Billy was a liar and a fraud. And what happened with those charges? They got dropped. Okay? It's because Michael Kelly was the liar and the fraud. Okay? Claire Deeks are the liar and the fraud. And they're the people who are basically the biggest members of the and financiers of the current wider New Zealand quote-unquote freedom movement. And I've never been involved in the freedom movement. Never! I started being involved in the truth movement after being involved with the cannabis movement, because I realized that the cannabis movement wasn't about truth unless it was about cannabis. And I realized that the world was a lot more complicated because I recognized that there is other things in the world other than cannabis. And so, and I did a test one time. I was helping the Cannabis Party with their electoral campaign, and so I just tested this. I called it the Just Say No campaign, so that the Cannabis Party would have other policies other than that relevant to cannabis, right? The Just Say No campaign. Just say no to fluoride, just say no to this, that, and the other, just say no to fractional reserve banking, blah, 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 and then posted it on various cannabis groups to gauge what the reaction is. What was the reaction? You guessed it, a whole bunch of people who are big about the truth on cannabis calling me a crazy conspiracy theorist and abusing me for daring to touch upon other issues that have just as much evidence, if not more, than the prohibition of cannabis, right? And that's the thing. People don't get it. They're too myopic. They're too ignorant, they're too stupid, they're too lazy, and they're too apathetic to really want to know the truth. Okay? It is not a truth. It's not your truth. It's not my truth. It's the truth. It's not the truths. It's not plural. It's singular, because things can be deduced through research, through clarification. How do you figure that out? I had somebody asking me the other day, or telling me that, I don't think there's really such a way of actually finding out the truth. I just don't even know what it is. And it's like, well, because you haven't been taught the very simple methodology, which is still difficult to apply because it takes time and effort. And everybody wants, McDonald's drive-through types of trial and effort in their life, rather than the whole cooking at home, a home-cooked meal. And I'm using this as a metaphor for, of course, discerning the truth for yourself. All right? First day of journalism's class when I was 16 years old at Waiheke High School, I learned how to find out the truth. Journalists ask the questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. You got somebody who can answer those questions to you without missing a beat. Just that person's probably telling the truth. But you can't guarantee that until you apply the second principle of journalism. You find another two people, that would make three people total, who don't know the first person who told you the who, what, when, where, why, and how, who say more or less the exact same thing as that person. They got no relationship to them, don't know them, but they're saying the exact same thing as them, and you got three people saying the exact same thing, answers to the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Boom. That's probably the truth. Quite freaking likely. Then you can report on it, and you can be guaranteed, well, almost guaranteed, because things slip through the net sometimes. We send little mental viruses downstream when we say things that we don't really know or we don't really mean. But generally speaking, if you've got the who, what, when, where, why, how, and three people who don't know each other confirming them, that's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And they don't want you to know that, right? And they haven't wanted you to know that since like 1886. Why 1886, Vinny? Well, that's when public schooling started, right? Public schooling. There used to be a generalized system of education for children before the advent of state-controlled propaganda, cult indoctrination that we call public schooling. It used to be called the Trivium. All right? Tri standing for three. 3 methodologies for how to live your life. Firstly, figure out the facts. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Second, process those facts so that you actually comprehend them. And third, teach those facts to others. Now, you can see how this system of education goes kind of counter to public school indoctrination to a large degree, because if the teachers were lying to you and your job was to teach people how to spot lies, they wouldn't listen to you for very much longer. They'd talk to their parents about it and say that these people who are running the school are complete liars. Oh, how do you know that, son? Well, because I asked the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and I got 3 other people to confirm it for me, and I figured out that the teacher was lying to us about the Federal Reserve Bank. So, yeah, they're indoctrinating me, Dad. They're cult indoctrinating me. They're isolating me from you. They got fluorescent lighting and poor nutrition, and I have to be sleep deprived in order to make it to school on time. And there's a silo mentality where they henpeck me for questioning outside the official person who's at the head of the class who can't be questioned, and the doctrine that they're reading out, which also likewise can't be questioned. They're cult indoctrination me, Daddy. Get me the hell out of this public indoctrination schooling system, otherwise my creativity is going to suffer, my empathy is going to suffer, and my ability to live a life in fulfillment with my natural talents and gifts, which are supposed to be fostered, ain't going to be as awesome as they should be. Right? We've been so very, very indoctrinated over such a long time that we don't even realize that it's been happening. And we're just doing it because that's just what's done. Why is this? Well, let me explain this to you. It was an experiment with 3 monkeys in a cage. And in the middle of the cage, there was a tall pole that the monkeys could climb up, and bananas at the top of that pole. And then there was a freezing cold water hose as well, available to the zoo handler who was taking care of them during this experiment. Anytime one of the monkeys went up to go and get those bananas, he'd spray all 3 of them down with a cold hose. Man, that'll wake you up in the morning. And then they got one of these monkeys and they rotated him out. And they brought in another new monkey who'd never been sprayed by a hose. So when he saw the bananas, he tried to go for them. And the most amazing thing happened. The 2 monkeys who'd been sprayed with a hose beat the shit out of him. And he didn't know why you're not supposed to go for the bananas. He just knew that if you did, you'd get the shit beaten out of you. And then another monkey that had been sprayed with the coal hose gets rotated out. And then a new monkey comes in. He goes for the bananas. What happens? He gets the shit beaten out of him. And so they rotate out the last monkey who had any idea why you're actually not supposed to go for the bananas because you get sprayed with the cold hose. They rotate him out and they bring a new guy in. New guy sees the bananas. He goes for him. And what happens with these 2 other monkeys that had never been sprayed with a cold hose, the reason why you don't go for the bananas? They beat the shit out of him too. Because it's just the way things are. It's just the way things are done. Because they didn't have the reasoning capacity, okay, to go over and just sort of discuss, why are we doing that? And it happens to us humans too. There was a researcher who went round to dinner at a woman's house and she cut half of the roast off and then cooked it like that. She cut the ends off, rather. And the person asked, why do you do that? And she go, I did that because that's how my mum did it. And they go to their mother and they go, why do you cut both the ends off the roast before you put it in the pot? She goes, I just did that because my grandmother did it. So he goes to the grandmother and says, why do you cut both the ends off the pot? And she goes, well, during the Depression, we only had a really small pot. So the roast wouldn't fit unless we cut the ends off. Okay, so just think for one moment, how much of the things that you're doing are you not like questioning? How many of the things are you doing just because it's the way it's always been done? Find out. Question those things and stop obeying rules and practices and traditions that have no validity. That's what we'd all hope to do. That's how mankind gets out of this grip that we are currently being strangled by. The grip of ignorance, apathy, laziness, and cowardice. Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Please go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, please make a donation. Hopefully this show has been enlightening somewhat, perhaps entertaining, and maybe at the end help you feel a little bit refreshed. If it hasn't, I'm sorry. I have failed in my duties. But if it has, maybe somebody else will benefit from it that can't afford to donate for it, and that is why you donate to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Not because of the things I'm gonna do, but because of the things I have already done. We keep producing the show, and we keep doing it because it's the right thing to do, and it needs no further justification than that. Thanks, guys. We'll see you again sometime.
Gentlemen, I brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem. It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show. The Vinny Eastwood show. Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show. We're the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists. It's Vinny's jokes. See, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our Scumbaggery, which we call necessary. Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift, with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Vinny Eastwood? Absolutely, he's a major impediment to our planet. It's just how are we going to get rid of him? We could poison his water supply. We've done that already. Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we? But I am still glad, I mean, even if I am not really the overlord, and I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world, you know, penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yes, well, thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise, I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem has probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96, you see.